There is strong reason to reconsider the traditional account of Isaac's origins through a historical lens that places Pharaoh Thutmose III at the center of the story. In ancient times, pharaohs were not merely kings but were regarded as living gods, divine embodiments of authority and cosmic order. When the biblical narrative describes Abraham meeting the Lord who promises him descendants as numerous as the stars, it may in fact be describing Abraham's encounter with Pharaoh Thutmose III, the dominant and divine ruler of the 18th dynasty. This meeting mirrors a political covenant rather than a purely spiritual event. Thutmose III, known for military brilliance and extensive empire building, would have had both the authority and motivation to grant Abraham such a promise, especially if Abraham was entering into Egyptian vassalage or alliance. The rite of circumcision, traditionally attributed to divine command, was in fact an Egyptian practice long before Abraham's time, suggesting that this covenant was a political and cultural integration into Egyptian royal custom. Furthermore, the change of Sarai's name to Sarah, meaning princess, hints at her elevation to royal status, a status confirmed if she were chosen to bear royal offspring. The narrative of Thutmose III visiting Abraham again with two companions, described as angels, reflects typical Egyptian diplomatic or military protocol, traveling with a priest of Amun and a general. Their inquiry about Sarah's location, "Where is your wife Sarah?" marks the moment of royal conception, legitimized by Egyptian tradition. Sarah conceiving Isaac after this meeting supports the idea that Isaac was not merely Abraham's biological son, but the heir of a powerful divine king, merging Hebrew lineage with Egyptian royal blood. The subsequent destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, using sulfur, aligns with Egyptian military tactics and resources, especially considering Egypt's access to abundant sulfur deposits. Thus, Isaac emerges as the product of a sacred alliance between Abraham and Thutmose III, securing a divine and royal lineage that would shape the future of the Israelites. Isaac understood that he was not just an ordinary Mun, descended from a tribal nomad. He knew that royal blood coursed through his veins. From a young age, he would have been told by Abraham and Sarah about the sacred encounter with Pharaoh Thutmose III, the living god of their time. Isaac carried this knowledge with pride. He knew that he was the fulfillment of a divine covenant made not merely with a distant invisible deity, but through a flesh-and-blood king who held the power of empires in his hands. This royal Egyptian bloodline was no small thing. It was a sacred heritage, a connection to the kingship traditions of the greatest civilization on earth at that time. And Isaac, understanding the magnitude of what he carried, would have impressed this truth upon his own sons, Esau and Jacob. When the story of the birthright comes into view in the Bible, it is not just about a few extra goats or land inheritance. It was about carrying forward a royal legacy. Isaac was safeguarding a birthright tied directly to Egyptian pharaonic authority, something that had been covenanted in blood, in ritual, and in sacred oaths between Abraham and Thutmose III. Esau, being more concerned with his immediate physical needs and pleasures, showed that he did not grasp the weight of what he had been given. He despised the birthright, selling it for a mere bowl of stew, a decision that in any royal household would have been considered scandalous, even treasonous. In contrast, Jacob understood. He saw that the birthright was the bridge to kingship, to destiny, to preserving the divine and royal thread that ran through their family. This is why the biblical text places so much tension and focus around the birthright. It wasn't just a family squabble. It was a cosmic matter, a question of whether the royal line would continue with those who honored it or be lost through negligence. Jacob's shrewdness, even his deception, can be seen in this light. He fought to keep sacred what Esau so carelessly threw away. It wasn't merely ambition, it was preservation. Later, when Jacob had sons of his own, the same issue arose. His sons, like Esau before them, largely failed to understand the weight of their inheritance. They became jealous, divided, and violent among themselves, selling their brother Joseph into slavery. But Joseph was different. Joseph cherished the dream of kingship. He honored the sacred blood that flowed within him. His dreams of rulership were not the fantasies of a boastful boy. They were the natural stirring of a spirit that remembered its origins, that carried the imprint of pharaonic destiny within his very being. And, fittingly, Joseph's path led him back to Egypt. There, through trials and betrayals, he rose to power, not as a foreigner struggling to fit in, but as a rightful heir returning to the cradle of his bloodline. Pharaoh recognized something of himself in Joseph. It was no accident that Joseph was given an Egyptian wife, an Egyptian name, and full administrative control over the land. He wasn't just accepted, he was elevated because he was, by blood, one of them. His rise was not a betrayal of his Hebrew roots, but a fulfillment of the covenant made generations earlier when Abraham bowed before Thutmose III and received the royal promise. Thus, the story of Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph is not a simple tale of shepherds and tents. It is the hidden story of a royal house, a pharaonic line hidden in plain sight within the scriptures. It is the story of those who honored the divine legacy entrusted to them, and those who let it slip through their fingers. And once we begin to see this layer beneath the text, we realize that the entire narrative of the patriarchs was never just about faith or wandering. It was about kingship, about the preservation of a sacred lineage forged between Mun and God King, between Abraham and Pharaoh, between heaven and earth. If you've enjoyed this journey into the hidden roots of history, and if you believe, like I do, that the truth deserves to be uncovered no matter how far back we have to go, then go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more we're going to uncover together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.